explain what you're doing, but I think that gives you a couple of ways to handle the discrepancies between ANSI and your MLS system.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
All right, folks, this is one of those podcasts. It's a little bit difficult because it's a podcast, right? Yes, I've got video. Yes, you can find us on YouTube, the Appraiser Coach on YouTube. I'm not going to do screen share today. We're not going to get that detailed. I want to give more of a 30,000 foot view idea and then allow you to be able to put that into practice. And the question on the table is, how do we handle the differences? And there are big differences sometimes between what we're required to do on the ANSI side and what is reported on the MLS. First, I want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by A La Mode. By the way, A La Mode makes it easy to do these kinds of things because they have tools built into their software. alamode.com or 800 A La Mode, and Working RE magazine. Working RE is the magazine of choice for me. I get the print version, I get the digital version, and I learn about my own career choice, workingre.com. All right, folks. We're talking today a little bit about ANSI standards. Again, this is a difficult thing to do over audio because it's more of a visual type thing, but I'm going to make it easy to understand because I'm going to talk from a high level, right? I'm just going to talk principles, and then how you put those into practice is going to be completely up to you. Let me set the stage, okay? The American Standard, National Standard Institute, ANSI, requires certain things when it comes to measuring. Okay. Now we can get deep into what ANSI is. By the way, it's much more than measuring standards, right? That's just one section, if you will, of what ANSI does. It's a standard. That's all it is. It is a group of quote unquote smart people that got together and said, okay, we're going to make a decision so that we don't have a lot of individuals doing things differently. Okay. Now this is not ANSI, but it's similar to saying, okay, 12 inches is going to equal a foot. Okay. Somebody somewhere made that decision. So all ANSI is saying, okay, how do we count stairs? Do we measure from the inside or the outside? How do we count a bump out for a fireplace, right? These are the things that ANSI will tell us how to do as appraisers. Now, let me make something clear. When I say as appraisers, it's only by choice that we use ANSI, and we're making that choice through the clients that we choose. For example, Fannie Mae has made it clear that they want appraisers to use ANSI standards. Okay, whether you agree or disagree with that is beside the point. The point is if you do Fannie Mae work, you are by association agreeing to use ANSI standards. Okay, all right. The problem comes that some of the data that we use when we're appraising does not meet the same standards. Okay. So for example, an appraiser, if they're working for Fannie Mae, is required to use ANSI standards when applicable. A real estate agent is not. Okay. I will even go so far as to say a real estate agent is a salesperson, and they're trying to show the property in the best light possible. Now, they have standards, right? They have reputations to uphold. They have liability, right? They're not going to sell you a house and say that it's 2,000 square feet when it's half that, right? Even though they want to sell the house, they're not going to lie to you about the size. Well, they might a little bit, but not probably to that level, right? I love you. I know you agents listen. We love you. But again, you have a built-in bias, right? You're trying to sell the house. So, is it easy to kind of sneak that standard up a little bit? Sure. Okay. Not only that, and I want to make this very clear, but we also have to consider certain things, right? So for example, open air vaulted ceilings, right? You walk in the house, and there's a big chandelier there hanging from the second story clear down to the first story, right? There's big open air. I have seen it when agents have reported that second level as being GLA, even though that second level doesn't exist. It's just open air. Okay, that's one example. Another example that I find often is the constraints. I'll use that word, constraints that we have when it comes to, say, a Cape Cod with a finished attic, right? And the slanted ceilings on the second floor. And we've got to deal with the height and the width of that height. And is it truly GLA? And an agent just doesn't have to deal with that kind of thing, right? The agent can basically say, you know what? I'm going to count the floor area as GLA. I'm going to say that's above grade square footage. Well, here's where the problem comes in. We personally, typically, depending on the appraisal, but typically we have done the walkthrough. We've personally measured the subject. Great. So we know whether or not it meets ANSI standards. What we have not done is walked through each of the comparables. So thus we are kind of taking the agent's word for it or the MLS sheet's word for it. Okay. Whatever their report, we have to, I guess, believe that that's the best data available. Now, we might cross-check it, and that's important, right? Phone calls and county records and other sources might help us to double check things. But in the end, folks, we've got this problem. And the problem is there is a bit of a disconnect sometimes between ANSI standards and reality. Okay. So I want to lay it out, and then I'm going to go to a break, and then I'm going to give you a couple of possible solutions. Okay, that's when it gets a little bit more technical. But here's an example of the problem. Okay, I'm going to make it very easy, use very easy numbers to remember. Okay, so that you can follow along in your book. Let's say that unrealistically, okay, we are, just for hypothetical reasons, we are appraising a Cape Cod, so a 1.5 story home that has 1,000 square feet on the main floor. And then it's got a 500 square foot attic that doesn't meet ANSI standards. Okay, let's say none of it meets ANSI standards. Okay, the height ceiling doesn't match. So per ANSI, you're dealing with a 1,000 square foot home with a finished attic. Okay, let's say that the house next door is, from all observation from the street, from county records, from what have you, it's pretty obvious that the next door neighbor is pretty much identical. Okay, they were built at the same time, same builder, same design, blah blah blah. But you go to the MLS and it just recently sold. Hallelujah! Great, we got a perfect comp here. Okay, I call them golden comps. We've got a golden comp, and it's next door, and it just sold a month ago, and you have 1,000 square foot on your report, but they're listing their home as 1,500 square feet. And you know why, right? You know why. And it's because they're not worried about the height of the ceiling like you have to be, because you're dealing with ANSI. How, folks, do we deal with this kind of discrepancy? I'm going to give you a couple of ideas when we get back. But first, I want to give you an idea about what software you want to use as an appraiser. Folks, many of you have dealt with other software for many years, right? Pros and cons, and there's some great pros with other software, but you've wanted to move over to a la mode. But you think to yourself, I don't really want to learn a new software. Now, I'm not going to lie to you folks. Learning a new software is not an easy venture. However, I will, with no hesitation, say to you, it will be worth it, 100%. When you move over to a la mode. Folks, if you want to learn what a la mode can do that your software is not currently giving you, I encourage you to pick up the phone and have a conversation with one of their salespeople. They know about the other software. Tell them what software you're with and say to them, Dustin, on his podcast, wanted me to call you and ask you what you can do for me. What is different about your software than XYZ that I've been using for years? Again, the phone number is 800 a la mode. The website is alamode.com, and the company is, of course, a la mode. Working RE Magazine is my magazine of choice because, well, I'm an appraiser. I choose to be an appraiser, and I want to know what's going on in the appraisal world. Just recently, I spoke with Isaac Peck, who did an amazing job. He's the publisher, of course, of Working RE, did an amazing job of writing an article on the new NAR settlement and how that has to do with appraisers, what that has to do with appraisers, and how your life can change. Folks, that's the kind of information you're going to get from Working RE magazine. Every appraiser should be subscribed. Find out more by going to workingre.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. My name is Dustin Harris, and we are talking about the differences, the discrepancies between ANSI standards and, yes, our lovely MLS systems. And the problem is agents are trying to sell houses. So they're going to show that house in the best light possible. And that usually means the most square footage that they can squeeze out of it, where we as appraisers sometimes have some challenges, okay? I gave to you an example before the break, and I'm going to give you another example here in just a little bit. But the idea here is to give you some answers, not just questions, not just get on this microphone and complain that, oh my gosh, we have this problem. Darn it, I wish it wasn't there, but to actually give you some idea as to some things that you can change or do to help this problem. Okay, so what do you do when you have a situation, let's say that you've got a 1,500 square foot home, but 500 square feet cannot be counted because of the roof, the ceiling level rather, but the next door neighbor is reporting 1,500 and you know it's an identical house. Okay, here's a couple of things that you can do. Okay. First of all, I might just say out of the box that ANSI does allow exceptions. Okay. If you want to learn more, go to Fannie Mae's publication on ANSI. Just Google it. You'll find it, and it will tell you how to invoke an exception. I will tell you that the situation, the hypothetical that I'm giving you right now is probably not one that you can invoke. Okay. It's probably not one. It's not like a berm house, right? That just does not fit the ANSI level. Okay. This is a little different situation. Your house obviously fits ANSI, if you will, or you can use ANSI to measure it. But the problem is your comps are being reported otherwise. How do you handle that situation? Well, let me give you two ideas, and it's really kind of up to you how to do them. Again, we're going to go top level, not real detail, but here's a couple of ideas. Number one, report your subject properly. Okay, it is 1,000 square feet, and then down below on another line on the grid, you could put other square footage or other size or other living space. Okay. Be careful of the terminology you use because, again, you don't want to misconstrue GLA with what we're talking about here. But you could put another line and you could put 500 square feet and you could adjust accordingly. Okay. Now here's where the two ideas come in. Okay. If you are one that's a little bit of a stickler, a black and white for reporting exactly what's on the MLS, well, then put your 1,500 on the GLA line for comp one, and then adjust out that 500 on that same line, and then make another adjustment down below on your other line that goes the opposite direction. So let's say you're subtracting $25,000 because it's too large. Okay, it's larger, superior to the subject above, but then it's inferior down below and it brings it back into line. You can probably see the problem with this, right? Your gross adjustments are going to be huge. Your net are going to zero out, but your gross adjustments are going to be huge, and you're going to have to explain yourself. Okay. By the way, you're going to have to explain yourself no matter what you do on this one. Okay. Tell the story, as Tim says. Okay. The other option here is that you adjust your MLS. Okay. Reporting anyway. Now, let me tell you another story quickly. And I'll explain what I'm talking about when I say adjust your MLS reporting. Okay. I have an area that I cover, and I've covered it for, 28 years. The whole time I've been doing business, I've covered this area. And this area is funky about a specific thing. None of my other areas do this. I see it pop up once in a while, but this particular city does it every time. The MLS in this city will take a walkout basement and they will report both levels as GLA. Okay. So again, making it easy, let's say you've got a split entry home. And let's say the top level is 1,000 square feet and it is clearly above ground. Let's say that the bottom is 500 square foot garage and 500 square foot basement. Okay, so it's half and half. So you've got 500 square feet that on the backside, it walks out, right, into an open yard. But on the front side, it's underground. The realtors in this area in MLS are going to report that as a 1,500 square foot home. Okay. I clearly cannot do that with ANSI because it is not 100% above grade. And so now I have a choice. And I'll tell you what I do. And this also leads to the other example that I gave you in a suggestion. Okay. One of the things that I will do if I know for a fact, okay, let's say I've called the agent and I've verified. Okay. I've called him up and said, hey, you've reported this as 1,500 square feet. I believe you. Is it 100% above grade? And they're always going to say, well, yeah, it's a walkout basement. No. Is every corner of that home 100% above grade? Well, no, the basement goes into the hill a little bit on one side. Okay, great. And that's about 500 square feet. That's 500 square feet. Great. That phone call then can lead to a reporting where I can say 1,000 square feet and then 500 square feet in the basement and then explain it. Then what I do is, per the MLS, comp number one is a 1,500 square foot home. However, per my discussion with the agent, it was mischaracterized in the MLS because 500 square feet of that is below grade, blah, 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 blah. And I explained myself. Okay. So the two ways you can do it is report what's there and make the adjustments twice, or change what is there and report it properly on the grid with an explanation. I cannot stress that enough. Do not be misleading. Don't just change it and go on your merry way, right? It won't match the other records that are going to pull up in the systems, okay? Explain what you're doing. But I think that gives you a couple of ways to handle the discrepancies between ANSI and your MLS systems. Folks, for this kind of tips and more, I hope you join our all-star team. I'll tell you where this idea came from. We were in our virtual meeting, which we do every single month. And part of that meeting is a micro mentoring section where we spend about an hour every month asking live and answering your questions, coaching, if you will, with a group. And an individual came up with this question and said, how do you deal with discrepancies between ANSI and what's being reported on MLS? And we had a great discussion, which we always do in those meetings. Hope you'll join us. The All-Star team is found, of course, at theappraisercoach.com. Thank you, folks, for joining me. Go create some value.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.